Chairman, you could start.
Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry on this Thursday evening, November 5. I'd like a motion. I'd make a motion to open the meeting, please. Is there a second? Thank you. We have nine items on our agenda tonight. I'd like to make one change, which is to move item number 6, 156 Palisade Street, up to the number 2 slot, and just everything else moved down one. Hopefully we are going to be joined tonight by IR Rosenkrantz, who's the chair of the Architectural Review Board. Oh, there IR is on. I can see him. Good. At our suggestion, the applicant went before them to give us some guidance and help on this application. They've been before the planning board several times, and I think we're making progress. But I think having some input from the Architectural and Historic Review Board could be very important. So is there somebody here representing 156 Palisade?
I don't see Patty on yet, but I do see the owner. I'm going to promote the owner to a panelist. Michael, can you hear us? Michael?
He's muted, maybe.
Michael, can you hear us? If you can hear us, you have to unmute yourself. I can't unmute you.
Maybe can we, how long is the next item on the agenda? Is it short? Because maybe we could.
Well, the next one should be English Lane, which is not short.
What about after that?
Yeah.
What about the retaining wall? Isn't that?
Yeah.
Why don't we do?
Yeah, we could do the retaining
Can
wall.
we do that while we wait for?
Yeah, that'd be
Patty?
fine.
Oh, wait. There's another Michael Lang. I guess the other account didn't work, so he opened up another one. Hold on one second.
We could adopt the minutes.
Not so fast, Brosnahan.
That was item number 1.
Michael, can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry about that. Yeah, Patty was just trying to call me. I'm not sure why he's not on, but can you start the other one, the next one, and then I'll get Patty on?
We'll give it a try.
Actually, let me try calling Patty from my office. Can you hold on one second?
We should do the minutes though, right?
No, we don't have any minutes.
Yeah, we got them.
Yeah, we do. They were distributed by Liz.
Oh, where? When?
They were emailed a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
Well,
want-
if that's the case, I don't think I got them, but I must have. Any additions or corrections to the minutes?
Did everybody get them?
Yeah, I did. I read.
I
through.
did.
Everybody but me, apparently.
I didn't see any changes.
Look fine.
Any comments or corrections?
No, they looked okay to me.
Okay, I would move we approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you.
On the retaining wall, is anybody presenting or are we just doing a resolution?
I don't
Not
know.
on the agenda.
I have no idea. I would assume the guy's gonna be there.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in
Oh, the 7 Fairlawn, you mean?
Fosner,
It's a public hearing, right?
Daniel Fosner.
Oh, so, yeah. So
We're gonna
maybe,
do that one. I should put Daniel Fosner as a panelist.
Hi, it's Mike again.
Oh.
I just spoke with Patty. He's saying the link wasn't working on the amended agenda. He's trying to log in from the original link.
what about, there was one just sent out an hour ago by Jennifer.
They don't get those, just
Oh, right, of course.
just you guys get them.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
of course. No, sorry.
I got an email from somebody also saying the same thing. It's not working.
It's possible when whoever amended the agenda, even if they put a little space next to it, it makes the link not work. But
I
it's the
told
same
Patty
link
to use
as the original.
link.
Yeah.
Dan, that's your girl, Pat.
Well, while we're waiting, I could acknowledge a letter I received and maybe others from Dwight Douglas, a Mr. Dwight Douglas, advising us that he would be resigning his position as of the end of the year. And I'm not going to hurry through this. I think we can acknowledge Dwight's real contribution to the village in the December meeting, but I did want to acknowledge his receiving his letter.
We're gonna miss
See,
him.
Patty's on now.
Yes, I just put Patty and David Kim on.
Cool. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
That's good. And I'll start video. Yeah, I tried to sign on with the amended one, and that one didn't work. So I went back to the original. So am I sharing screen? Permission?
You have permission.
Thank you.
By the way, Patty, is this scheme the same one that you presented most recently to the AHRB, or this is different?
Yeah, I have the one that I presented to the AHRB and another one, a next evolution based on comments.
Okay. So
we'll see. So are you seeing the screen?
Yes.
How wonderful. Okay. Well, it's disconcerting when you're trying to sign on and it's saying we don't know who you are. So basically what I showed the ARB, just so the planning board's aware, I took them through the 2 documents that you guys have put together. The one that obviously set the standards for the guidelines with the frontage scale, all of these components. I mean, you guys know it very well because you've seen it several times and a couple of you prepared it. So I wanted them to have seen that stuff. Yeah, go. Yep. I thought somebody was going to say something. Okay. Then I showed what Rob had done and how he had put that together. And then we went into the set of drawings that, we had submitted to them to show them the design. I actually don't remember whether this is the one that I think it's very similar, if it's not the same, to what I showed you at the planning board meeting. This is the one that has the 3 components in the front stepping back with the gabled roof. Some of the comments that the planning board had and also architectural review board was that the gable wasn't working and it seemed to just be making it too much. So what we've done is we've played with cutting it and making it a flat roof and stepping the top floor back so it's not part of the street front. So this form here is the part that is fronting the street. Then there's a roof and then this sets back further. Everything keeps setting back as it goes higher and as it goes to the right. We also played with the idea. I don't know if it's a good one or not. I didn't have time to think about it after we drew it. But there was some concern, I think, about the feeling of the entrance on the front being I guess, more commercial, like an apartment building. So what we did is we slid the entrance onto the side. And that actually enabled us to create a kind of common room in the front that could be used if people were having a party or something like that. So you guys have seen all of this stuff, the coverages that within our zone, what we're supposed to use in the code. Basically, the average site coverage is 42.76%. And we've proposed 39.99. One thing we did this is the different design. This is from what you've already seen before in that streetscape. So here's the piece blown up a little bit. And what I did just to kind of understand sense of scale in this was take this building at 150 Palisade Street. And if we put that on top of this with the three components stepping back, how that compares in scale to this element. And it's, as you can see, it's not really that different, except it's up at the street and we're setting back. So we kind of went through the comparison of, the changes for that. They're pretty minimal. This is, the pitched roof before. Now it would be a flat roof with a shed roof in the front of it. And of course, this shows how the entrance comes in on the side. As opposed to coming in on the front. We also played with the idea that we could do kind of some really nice planting in the front and maybe have like a little, kind of just a place that people could hang out if they lived there or just had friends. One thing I wanted to kind of show was this was the one of the diagrams from before in terms of how this worked. And while we're setting back further, our width and our, kind of fragmentation of different components of this are quite similar. The idea coming in on the side, we've got a garage door that's set back 46 feet from the street here, under the porch below, instead of trying to turn in, which I think is challenging to do. But there are a lot of similarities, and I can see why that made some sense. We still, regardless of anything else, are exceeding what the code currently calls, but I know that is being considered for change. This is what we submitted and showed them compared to how this steps down and gets lower with the flat roof. This is the profile from the side. Actually, I've got that in a larger scale, showing how this is what we had before with this coming forward to the street with the entrance in the front. And then this would be cutting this back further to the top floor. One thing I really want to point out in this section is this dashed line. That's the existing grade on this site. So, one of the challenges we have on this site, as we've talked about before, is yes, we're getting down underneath with the garage, but that garage is actually more than a story below, or just about a story below grade. What's there now? We're excavating in the back to get light in there. So this idea that setting this down further, I think this lot is different than most of those other lots and needs that kind of thinking that it is in a hillside. These are just the elevations comparing those things. And I know you guys want to get to talking instead of listening to me. This just shows that, how those different components, this sets back 10 feet, this sets back 19 feet. This sets back 26 feet. Then you've got 38 feet to here and 46 feet from the property line, which is actually about, I guess, 54 feet maybe from the street line to where you actually have a garage door that you enter the building. This was what we had before, and this is what we're looking at now. An experiment of seeing if that helps some of the concerns that people had with how tall the front of the building felt on the street. That's just showing how those, the part that's fronting forward, I might as well go to this one, is 18 feet wide. Then if you go from that same point to the part that's set back, it's 39 feet wide, relating to the 40 that you guys recommended. And then the overall on the building is 56, which means that we have compliant side yard setbacks on both sides. So we're compliant with all the setbacks Our height on this now, because it's to a flat roof instead of a pitched roof, is 33.92 feet on this side, 28.97 on this side. That's because we've got that split going on where this part of the building is a half story higher than the rest of the building. And then just some things that I thought need to be remembered in this is that what makes 156 unusual or unique on Palisade Street is the two-story change in grade from the front to the back of the building. Is a larger lot than most in width and lot area. That we are trying to have parking at one space per unit on our site, which is unusual on the street. And then, the part to do here is really be part of what we think can be a very positive transformation for this street. This was a street that, say, in the 50s would have been considered the back street in the village. And I think, times have really changed. And the idea that it's in the downtown, access to Metro North is something that makes it special and a really desirable place. What I've done here is I've tandemed the SketchUp model that we did, showing what the design with the pitched roof compared to the flat roof. The flat roof was a hurried effort today, so the renderings aren't quite the cropping, everything in the rendering is actually right, but the cropping of it is not as, they don't match perfectly, but they're pretty good. So this is what, with the pitched roof, and then with the flat roof, how it sets down and sets back. Again, pitched roof, flat roof. This is the one that I was thinking was really poorly cropped. This is from the south side, the two comparison from the back, comparison from the north side, comparison. You can see that a lot of the mass just kind of goes away. And then kind of at ground level, looking at the corner, none of this is detailed out. And that's one of the reasons that David Kim is here, because, he and I have talked about him getting involved, which I think would really be helpful. The ideas are there, but the details haven't been worked out. So here's the pitch with the flat, pitched, flat, pitched, flat, and then one more down there. And I think that, I just wanted to kind of three shots of the existing street, understanding what this building really is and how tall it really is and how big it really is. I don't think we are as out of scale as other people have said. This is another shot showing, this building is really not, this is close to the same as what we are. And there was a comment made about pitched roofs being the standard on the street. We've counted, there's almost as many flat roofs on the street as there are pitched roofs. So I don't think that in and of itself makes it an anomaly. And then the last thing I'll show is that when we talk about this site coverage, we're not talking about how wide the building is or how tall the building is. What we're talking about really in this project is how far what we're proposing to build sits back into the site. And the reality in these other properties, this is the property immediately to the south, is they've got buildings that go all the way back. And that's not unusual there. So the fact that our 39% comes from the back sticking further into the site, I don't think should be as big a concern as people have seen it. It's not a matter of reducing the size of the front. It's just whether or not we can have the size of units that we're trying to have, which are not particularly large, about 1,200 square feet for 2-bedroom units, 6 units in the building, 6 parking spaces. And that is what we have to show. And I can put anything up that you guys want to talk about.
Hey, Patty, could you go to the elevation? I'm looking at it because today when I went to what is available through Liz on the website, here, wait, go forward one. Yeah, that is, I think, I'm looking at my screen now. I think that's the elevation.
That's what I thought, Rob.
That I thought is the desirable thing. I want to say a couple things. One is, I think this is much improved. I think that I don't know about the pitched roof or not. On the little tower piece, the whole pitched roof, flat roof decision is, you know, I don't know the answer to that, but I know that in the line that we're always kind of, I'm sure the chair thinks we're crossing too often about between our planning board responsibility and and what the AHRB needs to do. To me, I think, I mean, I haven't looked at it and, you know, like super closely, but it meets for me, I think it meets the threshold where I would say, okay, from a kind of overall, with one exception, which you're not going to like, that I would be interested now in seeing what the AHRB felt they wanted to do in terms of architectural character. The only thing that's hard for me to swallow is that we would exceed the coverage that we are about to propose to the Board of Trustees, because it feels very funny, you know, for the first project out of the box on something that we're about to propose to the Board of Trustees to be an exception. And so I'm still concerned about exceeding the coverage here, which with the sliding scale, Ed will have to remind me how the 40, I think the 40% is the base. Is that right, Ed? And then what happens after the sliding scale is applied?
Yeah, 40% is.
And then it gets.
Standard, and then the sliding scale would take the standard and multiply it by 0.882.
Which would be what?
You want me to do that too?
Well, I did it once already. I forgot. Do you remember what the number is, Patty? I know it's about 50% more than what the current as of right allows.
Yeah, it's 32.8.
Okay.
No,
So I
no,
just want to say,
wait,
I'm almost done.
It's not 32.8. Can you verify that, Ed Mandy, please?
I think that sounds.
32.8 is our average that we calculated.
No. We calculated, we came up with an average that was higher than that. We kind of rounded, and then I think we actually rounded up a little bit and came up with a base number that I think, knowing that the sliding scale would be applied to the larger sites, I think that it was 40%.
Times 0.8 was 32.8.
Right. And so 32.8 was going to be, would have been the coverage for this site.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stop talking now because I've been way too involved in this anyway, but I just want to say, for me, except for the coverage issue, which to me is still problematic, for me, like, I like the fact that more or less at the porch elevation, I think having the entrance on the street is much better than having it in any of those schemes where you show it on the side, including the one that I did, by the way, where I had an entrance on the side. I think this is much better. I think the fact that you have living spaces that are kind of, you know, they're like at the kind of porch level that you see in the adjacent buildings. I think that's much more meaningful than any kind of community room, which won't get used. So I actually, for me personally, this is very close to the point where I would say, okay, AHRB, have at it.
Can I make one quick response to what Rob just said?
Yes.
Yeah. Basically, I think where we disagree is on the concept that there should be any kind of sliding scale. The sliding scale was not originally applied to the MDR2 zoning district. It was the MDR2 zoning district was exempt from that. There was a shift that was made in 2017, which moved MDR2 into the same as 1 and 2 family houses, which I think was a mistake. In fact, Ed, tell me if I'm wrong, but didn't you at one point say you thought maybe that was a mistake? Or I'm putting you on the spot. That's not fair. Sorry.
I said the whole 2017 went without my input.
That's a very good put it. I like that.
Yeah, or mine, by the way, or the planning, so.
We shouldn't talk about it. It's we already had one person say stupid things tonight on television. We don't need more of how crazy things can be sometimes. So I just don't see the need for a sliding scale. I as I pointed out, the difference between this being 32.8 and 40% is how far into the backyard we go. And we're still providing a really nice play area, terrace area in the backyard that seems to work quite nicely. We have a door actually, because we have that big site. In fact, that's one thing, Rob, I really thank you for. That when in your drawing, you showed the idea of actually being able to come out from the back of the building at the higher elevation. So we're walking out onto the site from the second floor. So people on the third floor, first floor, if they want to go out in the backyard, they can either walk up a flight or down a flight and walk right into the back. So I don't see how that difference of 7.2% has anything other than a numerical significance. And I think we're starting with the fact that 27% was not ever deemed as a correct number for the zoning district. No one ever set that number and said, this should be 27%. It was put there by the village attorney because we had not come up with a number yet, and they needed to get the code approved. So I think had we gone to the trouble that Dwight and George went to in 2016, we would have been talking of somewhere. I mean, they actually came out, I think, right around the 40%. And I think that's the right number for it. And you guys have lots of good tools to prevent overly large buildings and demand good design out of it. I don't think you need to constrict the coverage to accomplish that. Was I muted?
Okay, well, let's hear, no, well, I just want to hear from the other I think I've said enough. I want to hear from the other planning board members, and especially from Ayer, since he was invited, right?
Ayer?
Okay, so I'll take a shot. Yeah, but can you, Patty, can you show us the same elevation in the context of, or at least a portion of the street? That's plenty.
Well, yeah, let me get the one. I have that.
No, basically, we had a conversation with Patty in the prior board meetings, and I'm curious to see the reaction of all my board members on this, and everybody had the same. I was quiet and expecting what was the first take on this, because it's the first time they see it, and everybody kind of had the same kind of comment, which is, it seems to be out of context, but I agree 100% with Rob, and I think this is it's not an issue if that is not going to get approved, but it's an issue of let's work on it to get it right. The issue of building coverage, the issue of building coverage, my sense keeps. My sense is it's more closer to the 32.8% or 33%, or maybe between 32 and 35. I don't know what, but Patty just said something that it's a project that demands a good design, because it could literally transform the street. And if we start with a 40% average, I don't know if that's a street that we want to have, like as a, or if the 40% average is what we are allowing. I don't know if that's what Palisade should look like.
Okay.
That's the second comments I will make is, yes, there is articulation. For me, it's too much happening. There is a sense of quieter elevations. In a sense, the 18 feet module at the front, it seems, what's happening is, because it's 18 feet and looks like 4-story, it looks taller. And even if you put the pitch roof, it looks like a 5-story. It looked like a small tower. And compared to the building next door to the corner of Cedar, that building seems, the right proportions for the street. And compared to yours, it looks like something is off in terms of proportions.
Yeah.
One thing is, I think it's a scale and proportions issue more than it's an architectural challenge, not an impossible, not a no, but something that needs to be worked out better. The other thing is dividing the unit in 3, especially when you took the small building on like the building 2 houses down that you multiplied by 3.
50, this one.
Yeah, that you multiply it by 3, you see the problem that it's when you put them together, it creates like I think it was Dwight at some point that took the same building and put it in the proposing to subdivide the lot in 2 and have like one next to the other, I think, in one of the versions that was considered. And that looked more in proportions than putting the 3 together. It's really massive. And that might be that the concept of 3 modules works against you. If you have 2 modules, one is closer and probably layered, and the second one set back, will be beneficial to your scheme.
I agree. And quite honestly, we started with that 40-foot width, and it seemed like there was a concern that was maybe too wide. So we thought maybe if we cut part of it and slid it back, it might work better.
But it will be wide if you insist in the width of a 4-story building. If you read the 2-story, 3-story with setbacks in the back, maybe might work for you. The other comment I will make is the debate between pitch and flat. I don't have a problem with flat roofs. I don't have a problem with pitch roof. It depends how you use them, especially when a flat roof with the view of the Hudson River is not materialized. That's probably one of the best views in the Hudson Valley. And just to have it as the way that you're showing it, it's like a missed opportunity. And not because it's a missed opportunity, it's because architecturally you're missing out something that will give character to the street and to the building.
I agree 100%. We had originally shown that. I took that off because it seemed like it was a cool, neat idea that would make the building much better. And I figured we could get to that later once we got the bones kind of right. But when I was showing that in the initial design, it just made everybody see too many black lines on the sheet of paper, making the building seem too big. They couldn't.
Right. All I'm saying in the question of flat roof versus pitch roof, flat roof is it's another elevation and has to be treated as such,
right?
Especially in a sloping site.
I never have a flat roof unless I can make use of it, which would be perfect here with an active roof.
Yes, roof garden or whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
But that's mainly my comments, and of course there is a lot of work that has to happen to get this building right. It will happen probably, but it has to do again with scale, proportions, and my sense also is, just as a final comment, that 39.9% is too much. You can compromise there, and again, just being this a development that will bring density to Palisades. I don't know what type of density are we bringing in, and it's.
Well, the density has never been questioned at the 1 unit per 800 square feet.
How density in terms of square footage?
You can't get to 1 unit per 800 square feet if you're going to have things like 33% coverage. The other thing I point out is that I understand you guys did something. I've never seen that math. I'd like to at some point, because what we came out with is a much higher number. As you see on the chart, the buildings in this elevation, that one section of the street, that averages 42.76%. So that's what the actual coverage of that part of the street is. When you start saying that that 40% is too big, I think that the too big was the concern of what the building ended up looking like, not whether it was a percentage. And
No, I'm sorry, Patty. We can't. I think we're getting into this game playing thing about if you want to, I'll go back and I'll tell you how I got my number. We did do an analysis using the using GIS and figuring out what the existing coverages were and picked a number. We didn't do an average. We picked a number that would ensure that at least 3/4 of the buildings in the core study area were conforming, because we didn't want to, we understood that some sites are already bigger than whatever, we didn't want to take necessarily the outliers and average them all in. So we actually figured out a way of finding a number where at least 3/4 of the buildings would still be conforming. And the other thing I'd like to say is, while it's true that, you're saying that, well, building back into the site is not something that's apparent on the street. The fact of the matter is the coverage, where you wouldn't be bucking against it, the coverage does have a way of moderating the overall scale of the building, including the way it presents at the street. And that's why we have that standard in there. The one question, I have one last question about the future kind of design, the zoning stuff versus the design guideline stuff. We set a series of height things, right? One was from the average of the curb along the frontage of Palisade Street, 5 feet or very close to it for whatever that elevation is where the first living floors are. And then we had, I think, is it Ed, back me up here, do we have 27 feet to the ceiling of the second floor? And then I think 37 feet to either the midpoint of a pitched roof or whatever the flat roof is when that was set back. So I just want to find out from Patty, do you meet all those, the height?
Yeah, I don't know what we do with the pitch. Let me get to that elevation.
But in terms of, let's start with the 5 feet to the first to that living level where you have those in this drawing. Is that 5 feet from the average grade?
We're at 115.5. The middle of it's right around 109. I think that was the number, or maybe it was, I forget. I think it was 109. I think you actually figured that. So we're at 6.5, not at 5.
Okay. And then each of the next, and then it was supposed to be, I guess, another 20 feet or whatever to the top of the second floor.
Right.
And then a maximum of, I guess, 37 feet to the flat roof.
Right. We're just about at 37 feet to the flat roof on this portion, not on the half story higher.
Mm-hmm.
So this part of it goes up higher, but this is at 147. Here's 110. So that would be 37 feet. If we're higher, it's by something like a foot.
Well, you have 147 though, you're saying to structure, that's not the parapet, right? The parapet actually is what you see on the street.
But parapets are not measured in Dobbs Ferry.
Well, I don't know.
3 foot of a parapet is exempt in our code from the height. So you go to the flat roof and then you're allowed a 3 foot parapet without measuring that in the height.
And that makes a lot of sense, and your numbers work with that. They don't work if you take 3 feet out.
Well, we still have a building that, I mean, I don't know, where the other planning board members, again, I'm curious whether they feel that this is now at the scale that.
So the left portion, the north portion is not in compliance, and your other 2 portions are what, well, we don't know what the center sidewalk measurement is, but you're saying around 109. So
I think Rob said that earlier is 109 on his drawing. That's what we used.
So that sounds
right. High for the main portion of the structure, and the north tower is probably, I don't know, a lot higher.
So the main volume of here is 38 feet high. This is taller to it. It's obviously 35.5. measured from 118. So that would be like 43 feet to the midpoint of the pitched roof. So that's, that's exceeding that. Again, when we've talked about height of building, I totally support the idea that the height is relative to the street because that's what matters. But on a site like this, where you're stepping back into a hillside, I think there should be some relief that you could build back further and take, not be too far down into the ground. So, what they did in Irvington, which wasn't bad, is they added 5 feet if your grade was exceeding 15% in the building envelope. So it might be necessary to have that for the, 2 lots on this street that have, or maybe 3 that have a grade that causes this issue. If we were flat, it wouldn't be an issue, but we're not. This retaining wall is actually, that's the height of the grade right now in the back of that, not even the back of the house, like about halfway down the side.
The north tower looks like 4 stories too, though.
It does. And that's why we were looking at that idea of setting this portion back further and having the front of the building be 3 stories.
And why can't you sort of combine this with the idea of having the entry from the ground floor?
Oh, you can. The entrance the entry is a separate item. It doesn't make what the flat roof is work.
Because I think this scheme, if it had the entry where you have it in the other scheme, which is facing Palisade Street, to me it feels, especially since since you set back that what is essentially a 4th story, to me is closer to moderating the overall scale of the building.
Right.
By the way, I appreciate again the 3-dimensional studies that you did. It's very helpful.
Thanks. I'll let Jose know. He was just allowed to leave about 20 minutes ago. So ready for an approval? Oh, that's right. We're not a public hearing yet.
Not quite.
Not quite there.
I think we worked long and hard, especially Rob, on coming up with the coverage and heights and so on. And I think you have to come up with something that's between 32 and 33% coverage and 3 stories.
I don't think the building works at that point. The idea of 1-bedroom units, fewer units, it's not what we need in Dobbs. It's not what the street needs. It's not what the downtown needs. It's not what our region needs. There are real issues here that I think we need to be trying to help solve. And it doesn't start with making.
You know what? Don't go into this. Just stop right now.
I stop.
I don't understand.
I think Ayer was in the middle of a thought when you responded to his previous thought. Are you done, Ayer?
I was talking about the pitch versus the flat roof.
Right.
That was, but I think it's clear what we said, and for me, it's very clear there is an issue of scale and context, and the issue of lot coverage that needs to be worked out. But that's about it. I think that Deepti is participating on listening, and she has some comments that they will appreciate if she can.
Yeah, I do, if I'm allowed to speak. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My comment is the same, Patty, as I had made to the AHRB. Number one, I think you have the tallest portion of this building on the high side, which design wise doesn't really compute. You know, you're making the building look even more out of scale than it needs to be, you know, in terms of design, number one. Number two, I think you really need to remove that fourth story. If you go back to your street view and look at the building on the corner, it has a pitched roof that's part of that story. It's not, yeah, see that? You know, that pitched roof is part of that fourth story, not what you have. And that's why it looks so, you need to drop that gable down if you want to use a gable. That's number one. Number two, it just is out of proportion. That width doesn't compute, as Yair and some other people commented. And number three, you know, I think that given how much you need for parking for the MDR2, I personally don't agree that it doesn't pay. I live in an MDR2 and it pays, it's fine. I think you should be able to work it out with whoever is the developer on this. I don't agree at all that it doesn't pay.
Well, I'm going to let Michael talk for himself. I'm not going to try and speak for him. He's a person who's very knowledgeable about that. That's what he does for a living. He's a real estate appraiser.
It should never be an issue though.
And that shouldn't be an issue, really. That shouldn't be an issue to, you know, to change whatever it is that you need to do. I think the proportion doesn't work. You need to be in compliance with that height on the left-hand side, and design-wise, that left-hand portion really needs help. I can't tell you how to do it, but
No, and
go back to the drawing board.
I understand what you're saying, but it's fair to note that we currently comply with the height regulations in Dobbs Ferry.
I thought that's not what Ed was mentioning, Ed?
No. I don't know how you think that.
You measure from the grade plane.
Yeah, and you would have been 30 feet.
30 feet from the grade plane, and we're 20, I can't read it right now, but we're less than 30. And then 40 feet to the midpoint of the roof if it's pitched, and we're 35.5.
And a maximum 3 stories.
And we demonstrated that we are 3 stories. This is not a story either in Dobbs Ferry's code or New York State. Where the garage is a basement, is a cellar. It is not a story.
And the left-hand side?
There's no point that the floor above is 12 feet above.
Nope.
Yeah, but again, we are confusing. You know, you can argue regulations. We are talking about scale and context and contextual.
And design, really.
Design.
I agreed, and that's one of the reasons that David Kim is here. But I just can't let a statement be made that we're out of the code if we're within the code. It might be the code.
So it depends. You keep flashing back and forth between a pitched and a flat. So the flat didn't comply, right?
The flat complies with the current code.
The current code for a flat roof is from average grade plane.
You're right.
30 feet.
Yeah, we're 33.
You're at what?
We'd have to cut that down 4 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which could be done.
And then the pitch roof,
Pitch roof depends on what the percentage of pitch is.
And we're steep, so it's 40 feet.
Right.
well, personally, I think the flat roof is a lot more massive in this elevation than the pitched roof, but I agree that the pitched roof, it seems to fit a little bit more contextually, but then to the right of that, it's very massive again. I mean, I think overall it is still too massive for the way that it's sitting between the two buildings and the way it fits on the street. So that's my comment.
How many parking places do you have, Patty?
6. 6 in the building, and there's kind of the weirdness that the existing property has no parking spaces. So there's 3 required, so we would pay for 3 pileups,
Right.
at which point we've got 9 and we've got all the required parking at that point.
Ed, correct me if I'm wrong. How many parking spaces do you need per apartment in MDR2?
1 per unit plus a quarter per bedroom.
Oh, okay. I thought it used to be 2 at one point. No?
No, it used to be 1 in
One.
mixed use and 2 per dwelling in the OFs.
What Dipke, I think, is thinking about is when she was working her house, that might have been long ago enough that it was 2 for a unit in any residential unit was 2 spaces before 2010.
Okay, thank you.
Other planning board? I mean, I don't know what to say, Patty. I feel there's like a Groundhog Day
Yes.
like feeling to this. I just feel like every meeting ends up in the same place, which is, you know, we can talk about what we're gonna do with the code and we can talk about the existing code and everything else. But at the end of the day, it like feels too big to, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say. And we've said it like so many times, I can't quite figure out how to get out of it. It's frustrating.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've come up with some really good improvements to the code because of this, this question situation, which is, I think it's a good process. But then you just can't cherry pick what we've come up with is, it's not what you don't think is going to work and what we just come up with or what will work. You got to just do it. And then it'll be approved.
I mean, the right-hand side of this 3D visualization looks like it conforms, it has that first floor living thing. Okay, 5 feet, 6 feet, whatever, close enough. And then it's clearly a 2-story or a 2-story plus setback to a 3rd kind of building. Somehow this tower piece is, and I don't know if the answer would be that it has to set back also in a way so that it appears as a 3-story piece.
I mean, clearly, although we were doing it quickly, that was the intent of trying to make that work.
Right, which is why I think this version with the entry on the street, that version, that maybe that's closer. This, if the entry was on the street, I don't know.
One of my comments it's that I understand Patty and I appreciate the effort on each of the schemes because I know how long it takes to develop any scheme. But it seems like you're not designing the schemes. You're compromising massing and trying to come up with something that ready for a discussion like every 2 weeks. And I think that first we need to nail down the open issues of code, like finally nail down the cloud coverage, heights, whatever layering, what we're saying. The second issue is let's design a building that people will like, including you, because you're not sure yourself of the presentation. You say, I understand that this is
this whole thing that I'm showing right now, we worked on that yesterday and today.
That's right. So it shows that it's a 2-day presentation for the discussion. So,
right.
So it lacks the development for a proper conversation. And I understand everybody trying to relate to this proposal and in the context of the street and in the context, but first there has to be a context, a proposal from you that this is what you like, or you're trying to convince us because the burden of proof is on the design, and we have to have like a convincing design first. Today, it's difficult to come up with a scheme that is today cooked.
I wasn't representing as anything other than taking a look at the comment.
Right.
Made at
The problem is that when you see materials and you see windows and you see like, it's not a massing, it's not a sketch, it's pretty much it's a building. And when you compare it to the next door building, everybody's trying to scratch their heads, trying to, and I think it's unfair to criticize the architecture of a today proposal because it's
right.
Here.
But these things are always iterative. So it's like when you do this, that leads you to the idea of what would happen if this was at a steeper pitch, going back further, so that the gate, you got kind of a line on the side of the house, not the front of the house, that was like the other buildings on the street, and the top floor then becomes two dormers that are in that roof. Something like that might help a lot with that sense of scale. But
yeah, you have two buildings, one on the right, one to the left.
Right.
And these two buildings, they seem to be quite, successful buildings, not because they're, they've been sitting there for a while, but they have like, good massing qualities and a lot to.
Only in soft focus and memory. If you really go there and look at the buildings, you realize it doesn't.
We can go and look at the corner building, and I tell you why.
Oh no, the corner building on the street where it's 4 stories, I think it has a great character.
Yeah, it's a great character, great base, has a nice.
Yep.
But it's a nice building. I'm not saying you have to copy it. I'm just saying that you are between two buildings that they seem to be successful.
And the building, the front of the building next door, I think also has a very nice, interesting series of massing. What I was saying is that when you really analyze those two buildings, once you get past the front, it pretty well falls apart.
Correct. Could be. All I'm trying to say is it will be great if we start designing a building instead of coming up with
well, that would be something that would be fun.
And second is we need some clarity on the direction of code. What code are we following? And we have a design guidelines recommendations that it will be great if they are followed and proved us wrong. Because the way I feel is the design guidelines that were presented by Rob and Steve, they work. I think they can come, they can result into what you need, which is this 6 units, the parking, and maybe you need small variances here and there, but I think they will be successful.
We need I think this can be designed with no variances except for the fact that you don't have the sliding scale. If you said 40, it all works.
Well, that's
that's the whole point. I think, by the way, I think Ed is has been picking out the things that actually need to change in the code that we're going to be recommending to the BOT. So, to your point, I think we actually have clarity on which of these things we're putting in the code in terms of coverage and height in particular.
Which I said that just to reiterate that this is what we were looking at. So just to clarify it, that's all.
Sometimes it's helpful to just be like I think we might be clear on the subject of using the sliding scale. And so the building, if this is the position of the planning board, that we're going to use the sliding scale so that the building's width can only be 32 or 33 feet wide. Sometimes it's, we go back, we've been through this so many times. I think sometimes it's helpful to just say, is that the decision of the board at this point that the building must comply with the width using the deduct? And I have mixed feelings on that, but the best thing you can do, I think at this point, is to be clear and say that is the standard and they must adhere to that. And if that's the board's position, it may be the end of this project, or there may be a way to make it work. But we can't go, trying to be helpful isn't always helpful. Just gotta say what you say.
Yeah.
And if you've all done that, then we go from there. So I don't know if the board wants to poll itself on it, but if it's the consensus of the planning board that we're going to use the sliding scale and reduce the 40 to 32 or 33, whatever it is. And we have a waiver provision. So suppose if it came out to be 34 or something, but 40 is not going to be allowed. So if that's the position, then we should so state so that we can either get a design that works or not.
Agreed.
Yeah, one thing you said a minute ago, Dwight, and maybe you just misspoke on it. You were talking about coverage, right? Not the width of the building?
Width of the building.
Because that hasn't been, the 40,
Coverage, not coverage.
But it affects the same thing. I
Yes,
think.
Dwight, it's coverage, not
Yes,
the width
but
of,
it comes
yeah.
out the same, I think.
no, not necessarily.
It's a different issue. It's, the 32.8 was about coverage, yes.
Yeah, but maybe I'm rephrasing it wrong. If the problem with the building is that it's too massive, too wide, and we're not getting past that, then say so and say that you cannot have a building as wide as this, no matter how much it's stepped back. Or if you feel that's true, that you actually can achieve that and it's just massing, then my sense is it's always been too wide. And if we're going to stick with the massing, then we'll stick with the massing. But I kind of, in my own mind, kind of add them together. So
It's, Dwight, in all due respect, because I think it's width and height.
Yeah.
The presentation to the street is a combination of width and height. And if you have a wide site and you meet the side setbacks, then you should be able to play within that envelope. We had this idea of buildings along this street and buildings of this vintage in terms of bigger buildings. There always tends to be the ability to read a primary volume, like the big mass. And then over time, people add to it with smaller structures of one kind or another. And the notion was that the primary, if you look at the other frontages on the street, the other buildings tend to be somewhere in that range of about 40 feet in terms of its presentation to the street. So if you get a wide site, the primary volume of the building should be kind of within that 40-foot range. It could be wider than if it sets back. The coverage thing is the thing together, with the height, is what actually creates either a bigger building or a smaller building at the end of the day. But I totally agree with you that at this point, the clearest thing to do is to poll the board and say that it's still too big and it needs to meet the kind of recommended height and coverage things that we're going for, or it isn't, so that the applicant has clear direction. I feel like we've done that, to be honest. But if we want to do it in some formal way or show of hand, I don't know what that is, this kind of polling idea, but.
yeah, I would certainly recommend we do that. But it's strange to me because the discussion almost always is about how the building frontage appears on the street.
Totally.
So let's go deal with the coverage, fine. But what I don't want or wouldn't recommend is we keep coming back and we've got a building that fronts on the street and somehow is too massive in appearance on its frontage on the street. And Patty saw a lot of stuff on that, but we still seem to come back to it. And that was, even though we talk about coverage, I bet 80% of the discussion was really about how the building faced the street.
Yes, which is width and height. That's all I'm saying.
and there's a drawing that I put up, Rob, that you did. Is that not what we're thinking is the right direction?
Well, look at the, if you look at the elevation, I think it is, but I maintain this meets the coverage.
Right.
This meets the, where is it? I have the calculated here. This meets the 32.8 coverage. And so when you look at it in elevation, it's a smaller building.
Okay, now let me ask. And
let's not, Patty, let's not go here. It doesn't matter what I drew. You would, I think Dwight had the right idea.
I'm asking you,
give you clear direction on whether what you're presenting is still feels like it's too big for the street. And we could do a straw poll. The next thing to do is a straw poll of the board on that.
But I have a generic question to ask on this point, because it was a comment that many of you have said at previous meetings. If this, let's say the elevation of this was wonderful and it worked and the height's what you want it to be and this width is this, what do you care if this were to come back into this backyard.
We
What,
can talk about that after you come back with a scheme that meets the recommended height. Start with really hit the height and frontage numbers. And then if you want to negotiate about, because the fact is your building is taller than what we've been recommending. So you say, well, it's just 2 or 3 feet, but that 2 or 3 feet and the other things, well, it's just this, it's just that. And then at the end of the day, it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it's a duck. So it doesn't, we can like negotiate it over and over again. And, we're still back at the same place.
I know, but
Hire a different architect. I don't know what the answer is.
I'm telling you what you just said is, it makes perfect sense to me, but it is different than what was just said 5 minutes ago.
No, it's not.
If the
White's asking for a straw poll from the board now. Is the building still too big? So that you have clear direction.
Let me just.
We have to end this too.
Let me interject that Ed's, at the end of this meeting, we're going to be going over some very specific recommendations from Ed about how to change the numbers in the code, modify the numbers or update them, and they're really good. And I think, I think that could be, that could be the law. I mean, I think they're better. It's definitely better for the MDR2 zone than it was before. It's more realistic. And I've been poring over these, and they look great. And that could be the code, and you got to stick to it. I mean, and that includes, the appearance of the width and height of this building. So I mean,
none of that is something we've seen, though, right?
Not yet, no. But that, this definitely can be.
Well, yes, it is.
Well, it is
because Ed and I sat down and codified the same design guidelines we've been talking about for 3 months. So you have seen it. You may not have seen it in the form of
right.
that Ed's going to present in that sort of codified page graphic appearance, but it is what you have been seeing for 3 months.
Yeah. So you just got to do that, and then we'll look at it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anybody else, Laura and Alan?
Yeah, I think I support what Rob said, that we're talking about expanding the capability to build larger structures as part of the new code revision, which is working in your favor, Patty, let's say. And I think that considering that you don't have enough parking, it's too high, even under those new expanded criteria, makes me uncomfortable. And so I'd like to see something that fits in with the code. That's it.
By the way, can I just share my screen just for 1 quick second?
Yeah. Stop sharing.
And then we should really close this out.
Yeah, it's been an hour, over an hour.
Yeah, it's crazy. Hold on. How do I share my, do I have the ability to share my screen here?
Yes, you do.
Why am I not?
Green, the little green.
Oh,
thing.
sorry.
The little green thing at the bottom.
Can you see this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say, Patty, this is GIS. This is the GIS work that we did. We did a couple of versions of it. First, we did the whole area, then we broke it, recognizing that the terrace B was very different than C, and that the area that we were really concerned about was not just A, which is this whole zone, but A and A1, the 2 sides of the street, and
Yep.
These are the coverage numbers. So I'm just telling you, like, you can say, well, it doesn't comport, but I'm just saying we didn't make it up. We don't have to debate this now, but I just want to say it's not like we made it up. We did our homework on this. So we can have another discussion, just the 2 of us, or go back and forth on
That'd be good.
on that, but it's a lot closer to 3 than it is to 4. And we're giving you 4 right before applying the sliding scale. So we went to the high end of what we thought might be acceptable on that street, but are anticipating a situation where people put together 2 sites, and now we have suddenly, without the sliding scale, another building that looks out of proportion with the street. So I think we should move, I mean, up to the chair, but I think,
I don't know if we need to take a vote on anything. I think,
Well,
Chairman,
you're just doing a straw poll. I mean, so far I've heard Alan, I've heard Steve, I've heard Laura, I've heard Rob. Steve Hunter, you haven't spoken, and Peter hasn't spoken. And I don't know if there's another member of the planning board on. I don't see.
that's it. That's the,
That's
That's all
the,
I mean, Laura's here. Yeah. Well, I guess my feeling is that we need, and the village needs to decide what the rules are here. We can't, it's until we really codify that, you can't know what to do. Then any applicant can look at this and decide whether it makes sense for them to go forward on a project.
or to ask for exceptions, but I'm sorry, I just have to disagree again about whether or not we've codified it or not. I think that that's a sort of art of, in terms of giving the applicant clear direction, we may have been too clear. And Ed is about to present, or has, the codified version of everything we've been talking about for the last 3 months. So he knows what the rules are. That is not the issue anymore. Well, I don't think it was 3 months ago, but it certainly isn't now.
Yeah.
Well, we've had this for 2 months. So, and there was discussion about certain things. Yeah, the one was presented in, well, we're at the beginning of November, and it was at the September meeting that one of them was presented. So I guess if you say,
when is the first time you heard that the building was too big in no uncertain terms? When was that meeting?
First time we had it in January 2020.
I guess, every presentation, the building was too big. In every presentation.
On day one, we could not have been clearer.
Even at the walkthrough, at the site walkthrough. But
Yeah, if I may, just to move this forward, I don't think a straw poll is necessary. I think the board members were all very clear.
I'd agree.
So, again, I mean, I think Rob sort of summarized where you ought to be headed, and they'll discuss those proposed codifications later on, and you'll have that information.
That'll be good. Yeah, I wasn't asking for anybody to take a hard vote. I actually said I didn't think that was necessary. The only person I hadn't heard from was Steve Hunter, and he's now spoken. So,
right.
Peter, you still haven't said anything. So I don't.
Well, I agree that from the first time we even discussed this project, there was always a question of the building being too big, and I think that's still the prevailing sentiment here. So I can't really add to that.
There you go.
Mute. Can we go on to the next item?
I think that's
Chairman,
yes.
we do have somebody from the public here with their hand raised. I don't know if this is a public hearing or not.
It's not a public hearing.
Okay, never mind.
It wasn't Michael Lang, though, was it?
No, it's a pre-submission. You may tell them it's a pre-submission conference.
Yeah.
Okay, well, is the
Well, thank you, Patty.
oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, everybody.
okay.
Rob and everybody for their work and hard work.
All right. The next item on the agenda is 13 English Lane, a continuation of public hearing for site plan approval for proposed new multifamily building. Are they represented here?
Christina, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Christina, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Can't see it.
Just a second.
Okay. All right, I move that we open the public hearing, please. Your second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good evening. Would you like me to share the screen?
Please.
Okay. Can everyone see the drawing?
Yes.
Okay, this is, I think, our third meeting here with the planning board. And at our last meeting, we presented these drawings and were asked to look at ways to move the entrances around. I'm going to go right to our ground floor plan. We were asked to take a look and see if we could get the entrances to work on the front facade, which we're able to do. So we reconfigured this ground floor so that there is an entrance on each end on flanking the opening to the garage. And there is one entrance, only one is on the side. There are 3 units altogether, as you may recall. We also rearranged the parking area to make sure that we have a handicap accessible spot in the garage. And as you might recall, we designed a building so that we could have a 5-foot sidewalk in front. Even though in this zoning district, we can come right to the property line, we push the building back, and we're going to be asking for a waiver so that the building will go beyond the rear yard, go into the rear yard setback, a little over 5 feet on one end, a little less than 5 on the other, so we can get that sidewalk in the front. Other than the change in the entry, our floor plans have not changed. Our elevations changed only in the front, where now you can see there's an entrance that's lined up with the bay window and the gable on the roof on the unit on the left and also on the unit on the right. And there is an entrance to the unit. Actually, this entrance on the right goes to the middle unit, and the entrance, and the entrance on the side goes to the one on the right. The rear elevations have not changed, side elevations. Our streetscape changed just because of how we've set up the entrances to 2 of the units. And we also have provided response to Han Engineering's comments, which were very minor. I don't know if you'd like to see, we submitted a landscaping plan. Can you see my drawings?
Yes.
Okay. This is the, okay, just a second. Can you see this landscaping plan I just put up?
No.
No, I'm going to stop the share
Please
and then
black.
start again.
It looks pretty severe.
Okay. Okay, so we provided a landscaping
I mean, it might work.
plan, which I don't know if we discussed last time, which is done by a landscape architect. And we also have fully developed stormwater plans and by Hudson Engineering, and they have also received comments and already responded to them, which were pretty minor.
Yeah. That's a lot of appeals.
So at this point in time, I guess we're asking for the board to let us know if you have any comments and whether you might consider making a decision.
Ed, other than the rear yard intrusion, are there any other zoning issues?
No. There are not.
Thank you.
I think it looks good, and I think it's clever what you did with you said this entry on the left is actually to the middle unit. Is that right?
Yeah, I'll show you how
In the
that
pl-
works.
I think I saw it in the, I think that's clever.
Yeah, well, you know, it's such a tight site front to back. So, and we have to get around the entrance to the garage. So we have one entrance, yeah, on the side, but the one to the middle unit is on the right, but it actually goes up under the unit on the right into the middle unit.
Old architecture.
I think the move back, you know, the 5-foot sidewalk really helps to vote for the variance in the back. It's just 2 feet on one side and 5 feet on the other side. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Now,
public-
has this gone in front of the zoning board yet, or how does this work?
It has not gone to the zoning board because it was totally compliant when it came to you. And you requested them to push it back to allow for some sidewalk space. So it was assumed that you would be granting the waiver since you asked them to move it back.
I see.
Yeah.
I think it's a good solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the
They-
plan,
did
but
they grant
actually it's the
waiver or
board
does
of,
the Board of Trustees grant it?
yeah, I was gonna say the BOT has to look at it, right, Donna?
Yeah.
That's correct. So the BOT would be granting every approval after your recommendation.
Sounds good.
Public hearing?
This is a public hearing, and I don't know if there's anyone here to speak to this.
I don't see anyone with their hands raised.
Donna, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there something about anything about this that you think we should recognize from a trustee point of view?
Again, just speaking for myself, I don't think there's an issue. I think, you know, it looks a lot better than it. I like that she kept it the way it is now than the previous one, which didn't work for me, but that's a design issue. And the fact that they moved to 5 feet back, I don't think there should be an issue with the variance in the back, because I think there's, what's behind it anyways? Is it another building or is it an open space?
It's
There-
a church.
It's the cemetery.
Yeah, so it's not infringing on anybody's.
Well, there's someone's
Well, that
backyard.
depends on your religious kind of,
It's not the cemetery. It's somebody's backyard that's
Yeah.
behind it.
But it's a yard, it's a house.
Yep. People are dying to get into the lot behind.
all right, that's it.
Exactly. Thank you, Donna.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I really like the solution better than the last one that we saw. I think it works well. I approve.
Yeah, I'm
And
prepared to recommend this to the BOT.
The
Yeah.
waiver, Ed, would be granted by the BOT or by the planning board?
I think the recommendation would be from the planning board to grant the waiver.
Okay.
So it's all up to the BOT.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
We didn't draft a resolution for this one. We didn't get I didn't see the landscape plan and some of the other things till tonight, but we could try to do one on the fly, or do you want to close the public hearing and move this to December?
I think we could also send a landscape plan to Susan and have her give a referral letter to the Board of Trustees as well.
Who is Susan? I'm sorry.
Susan is our consulting landscape architect.
Oh,
Okay.
that sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Well, I guess without a resolution, we can't move forward today.
We close the public hearing.
Well, yeah, we can close the public hearing. Well, I need to see if there's anybody here from the public that would like to speak on this.
There's no one here with their hands raised.
Thank you.
Well, what I was going to suggest, Chair, Chairman, is, I mean, if we're pretty much, if the planning board is pretty much recommending that the design as proposed or as submitted be recommended for approval by the Board of Trustees, you know, you could probably do that and have a resolution after the fact, you know, a resolution on paper after the fact, but, you know, your resolution tonight can be a verbal one, and then this way the applicant doesn't have to come back to the.
No, that would be very nice if we can do that.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't receive the updated engineering drawings, so we're not sure of the utilities and some of the other things that are in there. So I would actually wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
We didn't receive Hudson Engineering's updated comments, and we didn't receive any responses either.
Okay.
Christina, are you aware of that?
I have their response. And I guess I should look at the date. I think we just got Hudson Engineering's response is dated November 4th. The one they sent, and I don't know if that, the letter I have, they sent me, says November 4th, but I can't say for sure it went to Han Engineering. That was just yesterday.
And yeah, I guess in light of that, as it was suggested by somebody else, if we want to close the public hearing tonight and then just carry the matter over until the December meeting for actions.
Probably that'd be cleaner, I think, to do it that
Yeah.
way.
No, I didn't realize all that was outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we have to wait for that in order to go to the Architectural Review Board?
Oh.
No?
No,
Sorry,
you go to AHRB.
Sorry, this is Lizette speaking. I'm the project architect, also working on the project with Christina. The submission that was made on October 15th included Han Engineering's drawings as well. It was a complete submission with response from the landscape architect, our response to Han Engineering, and everything. It was all inclusive in that submission.
But George, you haven't had a chance to review any of that?
No, we didn't receive it. We don't have it.
All right, well, under those circumstances, it seems like you guys need some time to get all the ducks in a row.
Actually, I'd like to say something. Lizette is correct.
She is correct. I have the
She is.
engineering drawings in my copy. Ed should have gotten a copy to George, and I don't know why he doesn't have it.
Yeah, it's dated October 14th. The letter from
It's stamped
Hudson
received
Engineering.
October 19th.
Right. I was looking at another letter that I got for a different project on yesterday. The one that went to Han Engineering from Hudson is dated October 14th.
Okay, so we can close the public hearing and Han and George and Dwight can draft a recommendation letter for the next meeting after he looks at the engineering plans.
Okay, so, all right, so again, I move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Aye.
All in favor? Thank
Aye.
you. And we'll follow the path laid out by Ed Manley.
All in favor, aye.
So I think we're done with this one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Christina.
Although she has to stick around for 12 Parkway Drive.
Is that next?
Well, that's true. She's next on the agenda. Item number 3, 12 Parkway Drive, continuation of public hearing for site plan approval for proposed new 2-car garage and deck and an extension. So I would move that we open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you.
I would like to share the screen again. Okay, can everyone see the drawings?
Yes.
Okay. Since our last meeting, we have received comments from HUN Engineering, and they were quite minor. There are just some clarifications, and also we had to make sure our drawings were coordinated with the civil engineer's drawings. We have pavers on our driveway, which they do as well, which now they're showing on their drawings. Very minor comments. Our plans really haven't changed since we last met. Really, we just responded to the HUN Engineering comments. We also, since our last meeting with the planning board, we received approval from the Architectural Historical Review Board. I don't know if you'd like me to show you the engineer's drawings. Whoops, just a second.
Yeah, the board's been given your letter of the 15th to HUN Engineering and to the board in response.
I just put up Hudson Engineering's drawing, which is now fully developed and complete. There were minor questions related to mostly the civil engineering drawings, and they've all been responded to in a letter from Hudson Engineering. And actually, that's the letter that stated yesterday. So I don't know if HUN has received the letter from Hudson Engineering.
George?
But they're very minor.
No, we did not, but as you indicated, most of the issues were minor, and we actually drafted a resolution, so.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Does anybody on the board have other questions? Otherwise, we'll close the public hearing and move to a resolution.
Anybody want to talk about it? Want to speak to this?
I take it no. All right, I move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Let's move forward. I have a planning board resolution here. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board resolution granting site plan approval for construction of an addition to a single-family house on 12 Parkway Drive. Whereas Michael and Amanda Blatter, owners, have applied for site plan approval to construct an addition to a single-family house and to make other site improvements on the property at 12 Parkway Drive and denoted on the tax maps, and it gives the description. Whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application, and there's a long list of things that have been reviewed. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and surrounding area and the proposed improvement plans, and at their meeting of September 3, held a duly noticed public hearing, September 3. Yeah, we can change that. Held a duly noticed public hearing and all comments were considered, and whereas the proposed construction of an addition to the single-family house and other site work as herein proposed constitutes a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Control Review Act and is therefore exempt from further environmental review. Therefore, be it resolved that the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby grants site plan approval for the subject application conditioned on the following. 1, all applicable provisions of the village, county, and state regulations should be met. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, all required site plan and village consultant review fees shall be paid, and all items in the village consulting engineer's memo dated October 27, 2020 should be addressed to his satisfaction. The following language should be added to the plan: approved subject to all requirements and conditions of and November 5, 2020 resolution of the Planning Board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, New York. Any change or issue, modification, or revision of this plan, absent reapproval from the planning board, shall void disapproval. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall have an effective date of November 5, 2020. I make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
Next item on our agenda is 189 Broadway, continuation of pre-submission conference for proposed minor subdivision and new townhouses. Just before we start, one thing I'm going to recommend is that I think I mentioned that we schedule a site visit, and I'm going to suggest either November 21 or 22. So you might be thinking about that. Javier?
Good evening, everybody. Sorry about the orange color. It's kind of a little like
Nice.
it was Halloween. Anyway, thank you all for hearing us. So at our last meeting, we heard a number of comments. I think in general, I think the site meeting will be very welcome. I think there's a lot of stuff on the site that's hard to get a sense of the scale and the views and the proportion of these things. You have very different scales, from even the Howell House, which is quite large, to the to Sussex Hall. And I think I left a little confused, frankly, about sort of the priorities in terms of the view from Broadway and the provisions that we should make for Sussex Hall and those apartments. I think the main thing I wanted to emphasize is the height difference, not just of the building, but basically that they have a large retaining wall, and then there's sort of a base story, which is another 10 feet, and then the apartments start above that. So really down at the corner, at the west corner of the property, the real apartments are starting, roughly 20, 25 feet, is where the windows are. So I'm just going to go through a few things, and I think in general, I guess what I'd like to hear is, we've submitted something which was an alternate plan. We're exploring stuff. We're looking to work with the board on how to improve this and make it acceptable before we go to a public hearing. These are not fully vetted, but we just we think it's kind of a work in progress. Let me go through a couple of things here. Some of these share screen.
Jennifer has to, oh, there you go.
There we go.
Very good. So you guys know where this is, right? It's here's Sussex Hall. You can identify in all these photos. These are just Google overviews. Back from the river, looking back at that, and you can see there, to the side, there's the Howell residence. You can see my hand here. So, and in general, the height of things. Also, I think this shows sort of the view of this whole development here on the Livingston, which is more of the scale that we're talking about in here. So it's not like these are all single family homes, so we're proposing something really out of the norm for this zone. Right, so here's the overview there. You can see again the difference looking down, steep drop over to Livingston on that side. Right, and I'll just go through these quickly. I think the site visit is can be hugely helpful. So these are just the views around. You've seen these. Here you can see the wall. The wall actually comes down for a period and then it starts to level off. And this is what I was talking about. So down at this end, these are taken kind of in a range of seasons. So here you have a pretty good view. This wall is about 10 feet high here. This is really a basement level that is mostly serviced from the side. Here you have the presumably the first level of apartments. And you can also see here this tree in that distance. I think there were some questions about the proximity and that it was claustrophobic in there, and you'll see some other views. The other issue that came up, was mentioned last time, is the view looking from the drive. do that. So we added a few more photos here. So of course, I think the gate basically where currently these, the owner is in the process of bringing these hedges down. It has to be done kind of seasonally to not kill them. But this is, currently the main spot for a view there. These are these magnolias and so forth that are kind of overgrown. There you can see again the wall and sort of the height difference, and where you're starting these apartment views are really up a ways, right? Looking back at the building, this is that little finger of property that goes back in there, right? And this is really all wooded. There's really not views to the north west there. It's a nice area. It's been kind of a play area kind of tucked behind. There you can see better that wall that I mentioned. So there's sort of a terrace. I think there was a question about how far back this building is. I think it's somewhere in the order of 9, maybe 10 feet from their property line. So again, the expectation that we should, I think we were talking about 24 feet that we're away from the property line, and there's only 9 feet on their side. Again, looking down that little ravine, these are the old swing sets. So this is really the view when you're on the property. So the retaining wall is to your right. You don't see it here. And this is looking down here. You see a large, kind of very tall, leggy oak tree. And there's a swing set beyond. Right, so this is mostly blocked here. Right here, you see the trees in different season. This is really what you're seeing from the sidewalk currently. So there's really zero view. You're really stopped, not just the hedge, but this tree right here is kind of just coming around a little bit. So, the point being that there's not currently any view in that direction. There's some nice trees.
Not true.
It's not true.
Not true.
All right, so I stand corrected. There's some trees there.
There's a view.
There's a view there.
Yeah.
This was our scheme from last time. All right, so we were talking about basically 4 townhouses complying with the townhouse requirement that they're all basically cheek to cheek, connected. And I think what I'll just go through some of these, right? This was the next level up. Oops. Right, so this one, I can go back to the, sorry, let me get to this other one. So this is just a reminder of where we were. This was from the October planning meeting. Right, that view, about some of these, more developed 3D stuff. What I'm going to show you now is basically, obviously, very schematic, but just to get an idea of the conversation here. So this is that past one. Here's the one we're proposing now. It's a little slow to react. So this is basically 3 units. And the idea was that part of the challenge of the other one was getting the parking underneath. Here, by separating this out, here's a slightly close-up view. So the cars basically are parking, basically the parking for A is here in the front, for B, and for C, and there's no unit D. And by separating out the parking is no longer under the units. It's basically a carport, and then there will be a deck above. Just sort of the roof elements. So, but this is much lower now. So you'll see in a minute, basically, that as it steps down. Right, so this view here is kind of telling. So you're basically allowing these big gaps between the space between the buildings. So it's really separated out more into 3 buildings that are connected. So there's a view. Is from the west. So here are a few, very kind of rudimentary SketchUp files. Not designed as architecture, but just looking at the massing and the changes. This was another one, right? So basically here, now it's stepped back. This building is pulled back, and these are, carport, it's tucked in here. So cars here, and then down here. and, no building here. So there are gaps between these buildings. It's kind of showing the level of this, at the second floor, it's roughly, we believe, leveled with this unit B. And there you can see, so the cars are kind of behind here. Here's sort of a deck on top of the cars, and then there's a terrace, we'll say, in front of the cars. And that's, the same with both of these units. So the parking for this unit here is under the deck of this ground floor unit there. So again, the idea is that there are, gaps between these. It's not a continuous line of buildings. This view is basically from Sussex Hall, with the building removed. So we kind of see what they would see even down at this level of what we think is the ground floor. The first level of apartments, right? So they're not above this line. The next apartment is more on this level, but they're looking, so here's one view and there's another. So you have these gaps there. So I'd welcome your comments, or we can wait till the site meeting.
Well, personally, I think it's still really massive. I would like to see, are you going to, when we go to the site meeting, you're going to stake out where you're proposing to put these buildings?
Yeah, so we would stake out, I think, the required drive, for the exit, basically the lot, we'll say the line of the drive relative to this wall. I think that's
what distance between the existing home and the current buildings, or the proposed current buildings? What's the distance between the Howell home and, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm asking right now. So you're proposing these new buildings here. What's the distance between the existing home and the new buildings? Because that's a really tight sight line. I walk here every day, so I'm just curious.
So I don't know offhand what that is. It varies depending on every scheme. It's 50 feet.
And it would be also interesting to, and I know Patty Steinshiner did this at one of our site visits for, I believe it was like 100 Main or something, where he had helium balloons and he actually put it up to where the height of the building would be. So I'd be curious to know what that height would be, how it interfaces with 191 Broadway for the people over here. My other comment is,
well, actually, to that point, I'm wondering if, I assume they're listening. We'd welcome an opportunity to go, into those apartments or one apartment or something. I think that would be, everybody's making the trouble to come out here, and we're all kind of guessing what, what that experience is up there. I think.
I believe they all have a view of the river, so this is going to really compromise a lot of the floors that are on that side of the building.
I think the question is, what's the requirement to preserve a view if you're complying?
Yeah, the proposal is, just remind, maybe you said it already, it's completely code compliant.
So I think we're getting a little creative in terms of, the previous one was totally compliant in terms of heights and so forth. We were, the small kind of upper level elements were compliant. This one really, as we'd be calling this a 3-family unit. So as we venture away from what was definition-wise compliant, and we're looking to shape and design, this group of buildings, you always, I suppose you have this thing in your back pocket of a cluster development that gives you, I think, wide leeway, but what we call this thing, I'm not sure. So in terms of heights, sky exposure plane, setbacks, etc., we're compliant.
And is there like something, I'm just curious in the code, because I know there is this whole thing about how this is defined and cluster and everything else, which I Ed can maybe help us with. But let's say that we just wanted the best possible scheme here, and what in the existing code is kind of the biggest obstacle to you doing what you would consider to be the optimal scheme in terms of balancing the desires of your client with the issues related to view and Sussex Hall and so on? How different would it be if you said, hey, listen, if you can just recommend that I get a variance for X or whatever, what would that be?
I think one thing that'll come up, we have another option that we looked at, which is, get the parking off of Broadway. I can show you that briefly. It's, so this is the, we'll call it the rear parking scheme, basically taking the parking from here and, tucking it around the wall here, so really, if that's, it covered parking or whatever. So now you're putting something within, side yard, right? So you're not supposed to park within 10 feet of the property line, but nobody can really see it here. And if it's covered or trellised or something, so I think it's, the definition of what is a front yard and a backyard, all these definitions are really not, it's hard to say what is a front yard, right? Obviously, it's Broadway, it's a front yard. These are not three, these are one complex. What's the rear yard? Is the rear yard, we had always presumed it was to the west, could be to the north, could really be to the south. And then these are side yards, right? So really this drive is as big as a rear yard. So, how many places do we need to comply 25 feet away from something, from a property line? So, what I think you're saying and is that we do see, what is the best design here, and that works for the client. We developed this. We've not, preliminary costs and so forth. It's really not coming down in cost. All of a sudden, you have 3 very large units. It's certainly not, as good an investment, I think. But we'll see what comes of that. But we're willing to, obviously we're eager to get to something that's approvable and that the board is comfortable with and the village is comfortable with and so forth. But I think we will be hindered by some of these definitions, right? What are the setbacks, where they'd applied and so forth. So, if you have 15 feet on 3 sides, is that good enough instead of 10 feet on one side and 25 on another,
This scheme, and you've kind of already anticipated those kind of definitional discussions, and this, from your perspective, is the optimal, is the scheme that you would do. That's the best site plan and so on.
I think at the moment this is the best. We're trying to juggle a lot of things, and we have multiple priorities that are not entirely clear as which one, that they're in any kind of sequential order. It's all working together to make everybody happy. So
there is, Javier, there is a viewing platform right there too.
That's right.
In the vision plan, and so that has to be defined too. I mean, remember how much we haggled over that with what was it, 19 Livingston, about how much of the view to preserve and how wide it should be and stuff. So that's going to come into play too, unfortunately.
Yeah. Their solution was to cut the neighbor's tree. So that's what we're going to do also.
Now, solution for Livingston was to put in a public park, a little public triangle park where people could stand and look at the view, which I
forgot about that.
I didn't think that was enough, but that's moot by this point.
So
we're going to have to talk about that.
I'm going to recommend or suggest.
I think there was one, I'll just mention, I think it was mentioned at the last meeting about just keeping the 3 unit, or lopping off the turn at the end from the previous team, I'll go back to.
Javier, I just have a comment. Is it possible that the buildings go closer to the 191 and the driveway actually is on the other side, which is to the house property, which would open up the space to be able to view from Broadway the river? Because I feel like these are very massive, and I'm not sure if we're actually gonna be able to appreciate the existing landscape now as much as we would. I mean, I know that it's a private owned property, but still it's a view shed. So I'm wondering if you actually put the buildings closer to 191 and created the garage, which may not be the most attractive thing for the house, but on the other hand, it would open up that space between the house building and your proposed buildings, and therefore may work a little bit better. I don't know. I'm just asking that.
So I think you touched on it. Basically, by the time you get the cars down the drive and parking, because the best feature about these things really is, of course, the view from in this direction, right? So as soon as you start bringing cars and his garage, and he's leaving the car, or here, whatever, his family leaves their cars out in their drive, it just really, the one most desirable thing about these units and is very compromised. The other thing is getting the cars all the way down to this last one became a real problem, when we looked at it before. So it detracts tremendously. We can revisit that. The setback really is, somewhere around here, basically 10 feet, possibly a little closer there. So that's about the actual setback is, 10 feet if it's a side yard.
Mm-hmm.
Schedule a site visit.
So I think our previous, thought was, well, we need that for back. The cars come in from the back. So yeah, I mean, it would make this experience here, this view from this porch, is critical as well, right? You don't want to compromise this. That's the owner's house, and that's sort of the crown jewel.
Yeah, he wants to maintain his.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable that he.
Javier, I think this is a definite improvement over the 4-unit solution. There's breaks between the buildings. And I prefer having the parking off the street, farther away from Broadway, as you're showing in this version. So I think this is all a better direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's better too. I mean, I'm always in favor of site visits. I do have to say, it's going to be, I think your visualizations are good. It might, I think, we're going to go to the site, we should, and so on, but it's going to be almost impossible to visualize what it is that we want to see. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I guess I'm almost wondering, is it possible you said you don't actually have access to a vantage point that actually represents the ground floor, what people in the ground floor would see?
The ground floor of Sussex Hall?
Yeah.
No, I mean, if you walk down, no, we've had no access to Sussex Hall, so that's the first.
Yeah, and I guess based on the tenor of the letters that we've received, you're not likely to get it, because in the end, I feel like the thing that would really be useful would be for there to be,
If that's true, Rob,
would be photographs from a couple of the lower floors of the building.
I know.
And
this
then to have impose a photo simulation of the volume of the buildings on it. But I mean, again, that's like a wish list thing. I mean, I don't know if that's like within the realm of possibility. So again, I'm all in favor of the site visit. I think this is much improved. I agree with Alan's comments about breaking it up. And it is true that, you know, no one is guaranteed in perpetuity their uninterrupted view. People have a right to develop the adjacent properties. And so there is going to be an impact on the views from Broadway and from Sussex Hall. I think if we said that we weren't willing to entertain any of those impacts, we'd basically be denying the ability to do anything at all on this site. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I think it is better, as Alan said, but I'm trying to figure out what the best way to do a site visit is that will, like Laura suggested, it's a good one, I guess, the sort of balloon idea of like trying to find the corners in the air of some of these structures. But we're still not going to be in any of the apartments that are gonna.
Hey, Javier, you have a location of where the trees are on a plan, right?
That's right. Yeah. So our thought was, you know,
So can
on
you-
this tree.
Yeah, can you superimpose where the trees are with a, you know, like a estimated height onto this drawing where the buildings are?
Sure.
So we could we could stand on the site, we could look at the trees. The tree is, you know, 40 feet, 50 feet tall. And you see where the tree is in relation to your buildings. And we can sort of draw the buildings with our minds maybe onto the trees, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, so our thought was, I think I'm guessing here, but you know, let's say around here is where that, somewhere, let's say, so we'll locate, you know, some of these major trees, right? This is the big oak tree, which is, you know, and that, you know, kind of, if we measure up, you know, the height of, you know, one of these things or the main wall or whatever, you know, our thought was then you get a sense of this. So I think, you know, to Rob's point, the objective of the site is that we're all, you know, obviously some of you know the site extremely well, and which is that everybody gets to know it. And really, I think I'm hoping that you would, you know, that if we put up a post here,
You might be able to take a laser pointer out and just draw on the tree about where the height of some of the buildings are, you know?
Yeah, no, that's exactly. So if we can, or figure out a way to shoot a paintball at it, or, you know, basically it's a matter of, you know, standing here, and if this is here, and what is left, or what does that do for you? You know, so it's really,
Right.
I think, broadly, how oppressive, you know, I've read these letters, of course, that have come in, and they make it sound like we're making a dark alley in here. So I think that's really my number one thing is, if you stand here with your back to this wall, or, you know, if we can get up to this, you know, little area here, that this distance is not miserable, right? And, you know, we don't want to, our intention is not to, you know, slam this up against this and ignore this, and because, you know, these folks are going to be looking north also, right? So, so it's just kind of these broadly what these things do on this site, and what we're, you know, if the major charge, I think one of the charges of the planning board is to see what is best, you know, for the village. What does this height look like if we mark it on the tree relative to that building? What is, you know, something here feel like relative to, you know, this view shed? You know, broadly, we're not going to be able to picture, you know, exactly what this thing is. We'll have to, but we can go out with the SketchUp drawings, of course, and kind of hold them and say, I see, you know.
Yeah. And if you, I mean, you have the trees to paint pictures on with a laser pointer, so you can sort of say this is the edge of the building over here, and blah, blah, blah.
And so are you removing all these trees? Is that the deal?
We're removing most of these trees, yes. I mean, most of these were planted by the owner, I think I mentioned, so, and they're kind of overgrown. I think the tall oak trees, he's pruned it so that it's kind of a lollipop shape, just because at one point, I guess it was even touching Sussex Hall. So, you know, he'll be on site. You know, this one over here in the corner is kind of a low wide tree as you saw. So something taller that kind of softens that corner of the building might be better. So the idea is to take down, obviously, trees where the buildings are. We're trying to keep this 22 Mulberry and these ones over here all along this property line. Some of these are quite nice. And we want to stay away from those. So, and then to plant other ones, you know, where they're kind of have a catch-22, where it will probably block a view for a period, and then they'll grow above that.
Mhm.
I was going to suggest that we do our site visit either November 21 or 22.
It's hard to hear you, Steve. Sorry.
Oh. Well, I think
You're very muffled, Steve. You might have to turn it up or something.
I'm just saying either November 21 or 22 for the site visit.
It's okay with me.
That Sunday would be better for me.
That'd be fine. I don't know, usually we do it at 10 o'clock or so, Sunday morning.
That would be, I mean, that's fine with me. I open at 11, so.
I'm okay for that.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yep, it's good for me too.
Could somebody repeat? I don't know what was the time?
10 o'clock on the 22nd of November.
Right.
Sunday.
Okay.
22. What time, Laura, would work for you?
Sunday, the 22nd works for me at 10.
10 o'clock. Okay. Javier, okay?
That'll be good. Yep.
Yep.
To the extent that you can, if you could stake out the buildings, it would always be helpful.
Very good. Okay.
Because that was really helpful when we saw English Lane, when they staked it out. So that it would be helpful if you could stake these out too.
Will do. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Have a good night.
Okay, Javier. The next item on our agenda is item number 5, 4 Bradley Street. It's a public hearing for site plan approval for proposed 2-story rear addition and new patio. Do you have somebody for us, Jennifer?
Yes, I'm promoting them to panelists right now.
Okay, good.
Greg and Kathy, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Is the architect here? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay. Kathy, are you there? Looks like you're on mute.
I'm sorry?
It looks like Kathy's on mute. Oh, there we go.
You too?
Is it working now?
Yep. Is it working
Yeah.
now? Allow access.
Looks like it.
So yes. Oh, no, no. Sorry.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, can I start?
Sure.
Yep, please.
All right. Good evening. My name is Gregory Cacciapoli from Gabriel Seymour's office. Here to speak about 4 Bradley Street. Today is the public hearing for this application. And I'm just going to dive right in and start sharing my screen and just recap what's been going on to date. So here is the proposed stormwater or site plan, stormwater and erosion control plan. We did receive some comments from Han Engineering originally, which were all addressed here in this letter. He asked us to add a zoning table and show the building envelope. He also asked us to provide a plan showing the existing conditions, which we did. here. Here's an existing conditions plan. Here's a building envelope. If you look here, it shows the 12-foot side yard setback on the east side of the property. And then we have another 12-foot side yard on the west side of the property, as well as the front yard setback, 25 foot. So he asked for a full-size stormwater and erosion control plan to be submitted for review, which we did. He asked us to add the limits of construction for all proposed work, including the stormwater system. We made that adjustment. He asked for the site items proposed to be demolished or removed to be clearly shown on the existing conditions plan. The only things we plan on removing are the remains of what was a flagstone patio in the rear yard and a concrete plat, as well as a portion of the macadam walk. And that's the extent of the removal. And we're going to actually remove and reset a fence here just for construction access purposes. Moving on, he asked us to redesign the stormwater system for a 100-year storm event. And he had also asked us to make sure that no water runoff from the rear yard, on this drawing, from the rear yard flowing down towards our patio doesn't get into this curtain drain, therefore overflowing our system, which was a good point. So we put a berm on this side of the curtain drain, which is a high point, to divert the water around the curtain drain so we do not accept any water from uphill. Also, the infiltration system must not be connected until construction is complete, so we added that note. The area of the proposed infiltration system should be protected from over-compaction during construction. So he wanted us to fence off the area where the stormwater system is going to be installed so that vehicles and machinery doesn't drive over it, compacting the area. He asked for an overflow structure for the infiltration system, which we provided. Clean outs at any bends we provided. And I believe the rest was just minor notes. And let's see. Yeah, I think that was it. The rest was minor notes. And and he said he wanted to make sure that we were identifying whether or not cut and fill material was going to be brought in or away from the site. And we will be hauling fill away from the site, nothing to the site, because they'll be excavating for the addition. And then his last note was also additional notes that he had wanted added to the plan. We did receive another memo it was dated the 30th. I believe we received it a day or two ago. He asked for the existing conditions plan. I'm not sure if maybe he didn't receive it, but we did provide that. There was also a sky exposure plane diagram that the architect did provide following the first set of comments because it was asked for initially. A landscaping plan, the owner did not plan on doing any additional landscaping to the property. There's currently a lot of landscaping there. And if Kathy would like to speak on that after, she can, but we do not plan on adding any landscaping as of right now. Another question about showing the demolished or removed items. I showed that on the existing conditions plan. and he asked me to do some relabeling, a few minor comments here. Everything major was addressed in regards to stormwater and erosion control and drainage calculations. And that's pretty much it. Is there any questions that you have for me at this time?
Good, thank you. This is a public hearing. Jennifer, do we have anybody from the public wishing to comment?
No, Chairman, there's no one here with their hands raised.
Say that again.
Can you hear me?
There was no one that had their hand raised.
Yeah, there's no one here with their hands raised.
Good.
Could I ask,
Any questions or comments from the board?
can I ask Dan Romer if he reviewed this for zoning compliance? Are you out there, Dan?
Yes, we did.
No, here he is.
It's all good?
Yes, they set the addition in to be zoning compliant.
All right, good.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Not me.
Not me.
Nothing.
Doesn't
Nope.
sound like it. That would be good. In that case, I would move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Favor.
And it so happens I do have a resolution here prepared that we can act on tonight. That's the will of the board. Village of Dobbs Ferry Planning Board resolution granting site plan approval for construction of an addition to a single-family house, 4 Bradley Street. Whereas James O'Connor, owner, has applied for site plan approval to construct an addition to a single-family house and make other site improvements on the property at 4 Bradley Street. And be noted on the tax assessment maps that gives the description. Whereas the following plans and documents were submitted as part of the application and a long list of things that they submitted. Whereas the planning board is familiar with the site and the surrounding area and the proposed improvement plans, and at their meeting November 5, 2020, of the duly noticed public hearing and all comments were considered. It would have been. Whereas the proposed construction of an addition to a single-family house and other site work as herein proposed constitutes a type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act and is therefore exempt from further environmental review. Therefore, be it resolved that the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry hereby grants site plan approval for the subject application, subject conditioned on the following: 1, all applicable provisions of the village, county, and state regulations shall be met. 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, all required site plan and village consultant's review fees shall be paid, and all items in the village consulting engineer's memo dated October 20, 2020 shall be addressed in satisfaction. The following language shall be added to the plan. Approved subject to all requirements and conditions of the November 5, 2020 resolution of the planning board of the Village of Dobbs Ferry, New York. Any change, erasure, modification, or revision of this plan absent the approval from the planning board shall void this approval. Be it further resolved, this resolution shall have an effective date of November 5. I would make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Yep, you're welcome.
Have a good night.
Next item on the agenda is 7 Fairlawn Avenue, public hearing for site plan approval for proposed new retaining wall.
Anybody here?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
not sure
And
why.
Daniel, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. I'm just turning back on. There we go.
All right, there we go. Good evening. This is Alex Barris with SCSI Engineering. And I also have some plans to show on another device here. Can that device also be promoted into the, it's also under the name Alex here.
Yes, I will promote right now.
Thank you. Okay, can you see the plans on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening. We originally submitted these plans and had a memorandum from Han Engineering, which went over some comments which we addressed and made revisions to our plans. A lot of the concern was about making it clear that this is a permanent system that would be installed. This is for the retaining walls, which are currently a tiered system shown in the dotted lines here, which would be replaced by a single retaining wall going around the property there. So we have addressed we made it revisions to our plans to address the comments in the memorandum, which again had to deal with whether this was a temporary or permanent system, the use of the street for the construction of this system, an addition of certain notes to the drawings, as well as calculations. And we have all of that to submit to Han Engineering. He has not, as of yet, received that. We will be sending that to him shortly. The only other change here to speak of is that the first submission of this drawing showed the proposed retaining wall wrapping around. I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Wrapping around this way, but after looking at the ability to construct that, and the machinery that we need to go in this area, continuing it straight would be the only option to construct the wall. So the alignment of the wall was then changed in this plan. So I'm not sure if from here we should go through all of the bullet points in the memorandum, or if that's more so just once Han Engineering receives that, the back and forth will just be done through emails. The basic cross-section of the wall shows that the existing tiered wall will be removed and replaced by this single wall as shown in cross-section A. And this wall is, if I can pull up a picture here, let's see. Because the existing retaining wall has this distress. So this proposed retaining wall would be installed behind the retaining wall that is existing in order to remediate this issue. So.
If I saw that plan correctly, that wall is going to be over 13 feet high, vertical
That's correct.
What kind of surface treatments are going to help mitigate that cliff-like appearance?
Alex, if I can take that one. To be honest, we're not 100% sure. We have originally when we were approving the pool, we had a full landscape plan that, you know, with vines and plants along the 3 tiers of the wall. And since it started to collapse and we've had to do this project, we've kind of considered 3 options. One is the existing, or 2 options, I should say. The wall that Alex has talked about that has its steel and then the timber lagging gets stained, treated, painted, and then largely kind of covered with growth, whether it's vines coming down from the top and some plants from the bottom that are similar to what was in that original proposal, or some kind of finish on it, whether that's some kind of stucco or thin stone or combinations thereof. The issue is, as we started looking at what those will be, the price is just very, very high, and this wall already is so far beyond anything we ever contemplated spending on the pool, just to fix the damage that's happened. We just haven't decided on what exactly we're going to put in. What I was hoping, and I don't know if this is possible, but I'm hoping it is, I imagine some of that is ARB type discussion. We just want to get moving on getting the wall built and have a sense of what it's going to look like. I'm fine with whatever provisional requirements, if that's an option, or can't get a final CO until that gets looked at. But we just love to retain a little bit of flexibility as we start building this to see where the final budget comes in, and what it actually looks like, and whether the landscape architect, upon seeing it, can do something that looks good in our view and obviously looks good in the town's view.
And
Anybody else see this wall, or will anybody else be able to see this wall?
No, I can speak to that, Alan. No, it's a pretty unique property. So the only way you'll see this wall is from their backyard or from, I'd say, on the river with binoculars, maybe. And even as you look up from the river, you'd see the back retaining wall and the crest of that hill, and the angle, you would not be able to see the whole wall, even from the river.
Yeah, and I'd say even then, it's probably more in the winter time. You might have some luck, but in the summer, there's a good amount of trees at the bottom of the slope along by the train line.
Big enough, you might be able to see it from space.
Yeah, yeah. Google Maps will have a view at some point.
Any other comments, questions, or comments?
No, we're sorry this is happening to you.
Yes.
Like I said, in the scheme of everything else happening in the world, you know, we'll deal with it, but we just want to get it resolved.
George Palmer, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah. Did we have a resolution on this name?
As the applicant mentioned, they didn't submit drawings to us.
No.
So, but if the board wanted to move this one along, similar to the one that Dan mentioned earlier, if you wanted to move it along and let the conversation with the engineering go forth between us and the applicant, sounds reasonable, since he wants to resolve this as quickly as possible.
That makes sense.
Do we need to open and close a public hearing, or?
Yeah, we can close public hearing. We can't, I don't know if we can act without a resolution in that level.
You close the public hearing and work and act on a resolution next month after Han has drafted that and looked at the engineering, and we could send them along to AHRB in the meantime.
Okay.
Considering the look of the existing structure, wall, we should probably do what we can to expedite this.
Yeah.
Anybody want me to do design guidelines?
I was wondering if it might be, I mean, this is totally engineering. So it might make sense for this case, and given what we saw from the photo and the conditions there, that we just empower George to work with the applicant's engineer and get this thing going. So if it's as simple as closing the public hearing and granting site plan approval limited only to the engineering of the wall and allowing the applicant to proceed once he has approval from our engineer, then I think I don't like having something like this hanging out there through December, and they need to start working on this, it looks like. So I would think it
Village
might.
attorney was nodding his head here, so.
Yeah. Yeah, as George had suggested that as well. I thought that was a good idea.
No, let's do it.
I'm okay with that.
It's important that the resolution just state site plan approval is granted conditioned on working with the village engineer and subject to his approval for solely the construction of a wall that supports our street, and any other site planning issues or AHRB conditions regarding the wall can be dealt with later. Or something like that.
Yeah.
That sounds very good.
Works for me.
Dan, do we have to vote on that, or is it just not in our heads? So
I think you'd vote. I think first you'd vote to close the public hearing and then vote on what what Dwight said.
okay, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, and I move that we accept what George just said.
As your resolution, as a conditional resolution. Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is 14 DeVoe Street, a pre-submission conference.
Niall, can you hear us?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Bring it up a little.
Get this thing going right. And then I just hit the. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, this is. Let me start this thing up. I'm Niall Kane. I'm the architect for the owners, Christine Ferrugia and Daphne Obregon. It's a pretty straightforward project, I think. Whoops, start slideshow, sorry.
You want to share your screen?
Oh, I am, aren't I?
Not yet.
Oh, Evan, what's going on? You gotta get Evan down here.
You got to click the little green button at the bottom.
Press escape. Press escape.
Top left. Not unless it's pictures of all of us.
Go back to the Zoom meeting. Oh, sorry. I thought I had it.
Wall of honor.
What? Damn it. What did I do? Sorry, I know it's late too, and you're all anxious to get home.
The bottom of the screen, share screen, you see a little green button?
There we go. I missed that one. Okay, all right.
There you go.
There we go. There we go. Okay. I always seem to screw this thing up. Anyway. I announced myself already, Niall Kane, architect. Pretty straightforward project. Like I said, we're doing a, this is existing house on DeVoe Street. We've been through the zoning board. We've gotten the zoning variances for the side yard and the front yard. It is very much out of compliance with zoning, as you can see. This is the setback line. We're doing an addition in the front and rebuilding this front portion of the house. And in the back, we're putting a single-story addition here, which is very close to the property line. So we kept that low. And then we have a two-story addition in the back. In addition, there's stone patio work in the back where there's a sort of a very broken up driveway. We're putting in a new driveway. And we're doing landscaping around this as well, which is on the A100 drawing. Of course, we have all the stormwater retention here in the back. And yeah, let me just, this is the existing house. That's the back of the house. So all of this is all this brush has been taken out as currently. This is looking down the street to the west, and you can see a lot of the houses on this street are very close to the front property line. So we're sort of in keeping with that on both sides of the house of the property. Will be out at the same distance, more or less. This is just the other side of the street. This is again looking down to the west. This is looking to the east towards School Park. Just the backyard, just for some context to the backyard. There's the church on Ashford Avenue up there. Existing house. Let's go through that quickly. So again, this is oops. This is the addition in the back here. Addition in the front here, and all the rest is sort of a gut renovation throughout the house. There is one difference. If you have the drawings that we submitted, we showed a full basement here. Decided not to do that, mainly just for cost reasons. So it's all just a crawl space with the footing at 42 inches deep. And the same thing is true in the front here. It's just the there's. So you can see it's pretty straightforward. I don't know how much you want to go through this, but this is the back. You can see in the back here, we have, because we kept this at 1 story high, it's within the sky exposure plane from the side yard, which is so tight. So we've kept it within that, even though the existing house certainly doesn't comply. Yeah, pretty straightforward section. You can see the crawl space now for the addition, whereas in your drawings, if you're looking at them, you have the full basement. And this is just the colors that we're going to paint the house, and we'll have a stone base around the entire house with this blue stone coping going around before the siding starts. Actually, I sort of glossed over the planting. I don't know if you want me to go back to that, but it's pretty straightforward. We're going to have a, variety of yew and lace hydrangea and some chokeberry bushes around the front. So it'll end up looking quite nice, I think. So that was the quick version. If you want me to go back to anything and describe in more detail, just let me know.
No, I think we can call for a public hearing at our next meeting and off we go.
Okay. Very good.
Niall, that's a really interesting house. It was like by sale for the owner by the owner for a while, right? And what's the history of it? Was anything?
I'm not sure. I mean, I know that funnily enough, someone I went to school with, I think his uncle lived there, Finelli, and I think it was in their family for years and years and years and years.
Oh yeah, Finelli.
Yeah, and Finelli, Dominic's still around, and his mother's still around. There's a lot of Finellis around. And he might actually do some of the work on the house. We're working on the foundation and so forth.
Wow.
Which is just a coincidence, really.
Yeah.
So I don't know, any planning board issues to discuss other than just some engineering things? I was a little puzzled why such a small project is before the planning board, having been on it myself. But
what did you need from the zoning? What variances did you need again?
Oh, just front and side yard, which we got. It was all unanimous, and no neighbors taking any issue with the house or anything like that. And the ARB was unanimous as well.
Oh, it's going to be an improvement for sure.
Yeah.
Looks like a big improvement.
So, call for a public hearing?
Oh, yeah. I move we have a public hearing.
Second.
Yeah, all in favor? Yes.
Aye.
All right.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you been to the AHRB? Where'd he go?
I just kicked him off. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me bring him back.
Yeah,
No,
I'll tell him to go.
They did, they got HRB.
Go ahead and go to them, as far as I'm-
Don't bring him back on.
Okay.
Okay.
That graveyard near Christina Griffith's project, bring those people back.
I think he backs up to the cemetery too there.
I liked your comment about Groundhog Day earlier.
That's the end of our agenda unless we're gonna do some
We're going to do the MDR2 zone.
MDR2.
Now, I'd suggest, I mean, Ed, I pushed Ed to do it and he was good enough to put it together, but maybe we should, I'm wondering if we should distribute it again and maybe we should just schedule a 15-minute separate discussion.
Yeah, let's all think about filling in those empty boxes. We'll take a look at, the B zone, the other zones for heights and that, so we could fill in some of those before we send it to the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
Or get that thing complete, because I think we got the MDR2 nailed down.
Mhm.
It's, now that we're changing the text there, we should take care of the rest as well.
Ed, I had a question though on table B3, the multipliers, the sliding scale multipliers.
Yes.
How did you determine those? Just
Well, what I did was I took the existing set limits for the sliding scale,
Mhm.
and then went from the average of what a submission would be, and took the set standard limit, and then look for multipliers that would give me the same results
Okay.
as those. And, so it was just playing around with numbers a little bit till I came up with that. But it works now because, the other ones didn't work on specific properties. So the multiplier works for all properties.
Yeah, it's okay, cool. Yeah, I just didn't know where they came from.
Yeah, came from me. But I don't even think I could repeat it right now. I got so tired.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Well, thanks for all your efforts.
Yeah, thank you. This is
Yes,
great.
indeed. Well, a
Thank
man's
you, Ed.
doing two jobs. I've got,
Yeah, Ed's been great to work with on this.
yeah. Well, that being the case, I move we adjourn.
I'll second that one.
Yeah. In favor.
All in favor, leave.
I
Have a good night, everyone.
Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Be well.
Good night.